A policeman like this was rare indeed, as the criminal ran across a thin, 30-inch wooden board. Said police dared not to follow, when urged by his teammate the beautiful Stephanie to pursue the criminal. The policeman Rayan said that he couldn't do it for fear of heights. In the end, the criminal got away right in front of their eyes. In frustration, Rayan stepped his foot hard, only to fell all the way from the second floor. Thank goodness that he didn't actually pursue the criminal, else he'd surely lost his life. After standing up from a pile of garbage, a mouse suddenly climbed onto Rayan's shoulder, while Stephanie immediately hit the mouse with her baton to get it away. Rayan was still bitten by the mouse just before it escaped. After they got back to the station, the police chief immediately sent them out on another task. This time, their job was to capture a local drug dealer. They were required to act while the drug dealer was dealing with people, so that he can be caught red-handed. Over 2,000 cops, special forces, and agents were all over the place, covering every nook and cranny of the scene. Rayan was there too, but he was calling his grandma. One can hardly believe that a policeman could be so utterly stupid. When the car of the drug dealer arrived on site, the 2,000 or so police forces immediately tensed. The one who got out of the car was none other than the drug dealer they had been waiting for. The police chief warned his men to stay put and not act hastily. They can only act after the drug dealer started his deal. Just when the drug dealer was cautiously checking the surroundings, Rayan, who has now finished his phone call, suddenly walked up to the drug dealer. "I know you," Rayan said. "We live in the same district. You are the owner of that Mexican restaurant." "No." Rayan then warned him that this is now an operation site, and he should leave immediately, lest he caught himself into a gunfight. Learning of this, the drug dealer immediately turned around and started to walk away. Rayan suddenly called out to him, Hey, you forgot your bag." The police chief was simply dumbstruck by this. He couldn't for the life of him figure out what on earth this one had just done. After getting back to his car, the drug dealer somehow couldn't power up his car. Frowned. Rayan suddenly called him once again. The drug dealer thought Rayan had finally found who he actually is, and already grabbed his gun in his hand. Rayan then told him to switch his car to second gear, saying that he would help push the car. With Rayan's help, the drug dealer had successfully escaped from the trap. Cop Rayan really screwed up. The drug dealer's car broke down, and he actually helped push it. What a doofus. Ended up face-planting right into the dirt, watching as the drug dealer drove away. The police chief was livid. "Who is the idiot who brought a pighead like you into the police station?" he yelled. "Wasn't it you, Chief?" Rayan said innocently. Rayan has become the laughing stock of the station. So much so that colleagues have turned the surveillance video record of him into memes. While in the office, the police chief scolded Rayan for wasting the efforts of 2,000 men. "From now on you'll be reserved for the post of small matters only. And check out that wound on your neck immediately." After being checked by the doctor, Rayan was told he had contracted leptospirosis, a disease often carried by mice. He got 30 days left to live, so he should start to prepare for his funeral from now on. This sudden news struck Rayan as if it was lightning. Realizing that his days are numbered, Rayan decided that he had had enough of being the punching bag. Rayan was diagnosed with leptospirosis and has only 30 days left to live. With death coming for him quickly, he now no longer fears anything. He immediately kicked his ex-girlfriend out of his home after allowing her to stay there for a year. When he ran into the ruffian who had bullied him before, Rayan immediately proposed racing motorcycles against him with his eyes blindfolded. After they were both in position, they immediately raced forward at the signal that was given. The ruffian stopped when he reached a wall, while Rayan continued his race forward. He didn't even stop when facing the red light, rushing through the tide of cars fearlessly, until he was finally blocked by the acrylic board. The ruffians were immensely impressed, so much so that they rushed toward Rayan and said that from now on he will be their new boss. The drug dealer came to Rayan and thanked him for helping him the last time, then offered to give him $10,000 if he could bring him the dealing notebook that the police had taken from him. Without hesitation, Rayan immediately demanded 10 times the money the drug dealer offered him. The drug dealer pointed his gun at Rayan's head, reminded him not to be too greedy. Unafraid, Rayan told the drug dealer to shoot if he dared, and that it was a fair enough deal for you to pay me $100,000 so that you won't go to jail. In the end, the deal was agreed. The drug dealer bribed the police $100,000 for him to steal the evidence of his crime from the police station. Instead of doing what the drug dealer told him to do, Rayan first gave some of that money to his grandmother, then spent the rest of the money on traveling abroad. He bought a luxurious car, lived in presidential suit, bought a golden watch, went to a nightclub, even partied with 4 girls all at once. He was at the peak of his life. Enraged by this, the drug dealer called Rayan. "How dare you to pull this trick on me? The last one who had the audacity to do this was your father. Do you really want to end up like him?" Learning that his father's death was due to the drug dealer, Rayan immediately went back home via a rented airplane. Rayan dashingly opened the door of the office and turned it into his showing stage. He pushed away every colleague who got in his way and walked straight into the police chief's office. "I want to investigate the case of that drug dealer," Rayan said. It was because of you that we couldn't bring him in last time, and you have the audacity to ask to join the investigation of him again." Something big has just happened in the police station. A suspect has taken a policeman as hostage. When everyone was too afraid to move a muscle, Rayan decided that now is time for him to show off. Behold, as he jumped on the bench, only fell on the desk the next second. Like the fool he was, the suspect ordered Rayan to raise up his hand. Yet after one look at what was above his head, Rayan got a perfect idea. He quickly shot the pennant above and make it directly fell onto Tony's face. This allowed the other policeman to apprehend the suspect and solve the crisis. His co-workers gave him a big hand. Impressed by Rayan, the police chief agreed to give him the case of the drug dealer. He also assigned Stephanie as Rayan's partner, plus 2 narcs, Tony and Pierre. Pierre checked the notebook, yet couldn't find anything unusual, since all that was written on it were recipes that required flour. Rayan, on the other hand, realized that the so-called flour were actually drugs. Only then did Pierre realize his mistake. Rayan, on the other hand, was deeply frustrated, since he now realized that these 2 narcs, the so-called experts on the matter, were even dumber than him. According to what was written on the notebook, the flour was needed to make marshmallows. Rayan immediately thought of the one who sell marshmallow in the garden. Unsurprisingly, they found the clown who was selling marshmallow in the garden. But before Rayan could act, he was stopped by Tony, who insisted he was the expert on the matter. Behold, as Tony the police approaching the criminal acting as a clown. After exchanging a few words with one another, Tony decided that it was time to apprehend the clown. Unbeknown to him, the clown had noticed Tony's gun by his waist. Hence, the clown picked up a boy, slapped Tony across the face, and immediately ran away. Tony was indeed an expert, so much so that the word police was practically written on his face. Tony and Pierre then noticed the barrel in the garden and came up a new idea. Pierre wormed his way into the barrel while Tony launched him towards the direction of the clown, only for Pierre to be shot onto a tree and fell back down to the earth. Almost broke his butt. Rayan chased the clown all the way to the subway station, only for the clown to evade him by changed into a new outfit. Yet he was immediately captured by Stephanie. Apparently she was the only reliable one of the team. Rayan hanged the clown from the bridge and threatened to throw him down. Faced with imminent death, the clown had no choice but to confess the address of the dealer he was about to meet up with. Just when Rayan was about to pull the clown up, his hand suddenly cramped and couldn't hold the clown any longer. The clown was dropped and smashed into a car, but fortunately, he managed to survive. It is indeed rare to find policemen dumber than these two. Tony and Pierre were tasked with the protection of the clown in the hospital. Waiting for the drug dealer to come and take out the clown, Tony decided to pretend to be a patient in the hospital. Yet immediately after he laid down, his head was smashed by the opening door, and he himself was immediately knocked unconscious, while Pierre outright fell asleep. Meanwhile, Rayan and Stephanie had arrived at the house of the dealer. They immediately noticed the dealer's henchmen. They decided to split up. Stephanie chose to sneak in from the front gate. Rayan, on the other hand, went to the rooftop where he tied the fire hose around himself, then jumped straight down and managed to break in through the window. By the god, he actually did it. Stephanie was impressed. Rayan ordered these henchmen to surrender, but just as he was gloating, an accident happened. The fire hydrant broke apart and dragged Rayan down with it. Fortunately, Rayan landed on a car and survived the fall, and thanks to Stephanie who mopped up the rest of those criminals, they finally got the location of the drug deposit from the dealer. While Rayan and Stephanie had proceeded splendidly, things were not so good for Pierre and Tony in the hospital. This policeman truly has no luck. After he was knocked out cold, a breast augmentation surgery was performed on him. It was then that the drug dealer came to the hospital for their assassination target. Despite the pain he endured due to the surgery, Tony immediately burst into the room. Only then did he find, to his astonishment, that a breast augmentation surgery was performed on him, and the drug dealer managed to escape while Tony was still shocked. Tony and Pierre immediately pursued the drug dealer. They ran down the spiral stairs and chased all the way to the underground parking lot, only to be intercepted by 3 burly men. They all took off their shirts and readied themselves for a fight. Meanwhile, Tony had already formulated his tactics for the upcoming fight. He would throw his clothes onto the faces of his opponent to block his vision, then use this chance to hit his face, and after blocking an attack, he would break his ribs and his jaw, then attack his liver and finally broke his ligament. And he would end the fight by kicking his opponent down with a counterattack of his leg. Yet he failed before he could even start. He failed to throw his clothes at his opponent. Tony then proceeded to throw his shirt, his shoes, his pants, and even his underwear, but it was all in vain. In the end, Tony and Pierre were locked in a garage. While trying to burn through the cord that tied them together, Tony screwed up once again. As usual, by setting himself on fire, despite Pierre's best effort to try to put down the fire on him. The fire somehow turned larger and larger, and in the end even drew the attention of firefighters. In the end, Pierre threw Tony down on the air cushion, then jumped down upon it himself, only to bounce Tony back up. Their own operation ended in utter failure. Meanwhile, Rayan and Stephanie were still pursuing the drug dealer, driving their police car. They were heading towards the next place of dealing. Rayan was told by a doctor that he had a very severe disease that would leave him with only 30 days to live, and here he was, hiding under the car of the drug dealer, and was unlucky enough to have shit splashed all over his face, and his butt was pierced by a hedgehog. Still, he managed to reach the destination without other incidents. Surprisingly, the band of drug dealers brought their drugs to the embassy of Mexico. Rayan immediately knocked out the security guard while Stephanie arrived as well, with a child no less. "I cannot leave the baby on the car alone." She handed the baby to Rayan through the gap, then swiftly climbed atop the guardrail. "Pretty cool. Huh? How's that for skills?" The door was already open. "Why the heck did you go through all that trouble?" Rayan said, dumbfounded. After sneaked into the embassy, they found that workers were smashing down masks made by drugs. It was then that Tony and Pierre arrived as well. The embassy was holding an event, so the four decided to dress up as performers. They decided to put the baby into a round prop, but Rayan, of all things, ended up changing into a wrestler's outfit. As a result, he became the punching bag for the real wrestlers and was tossed back and forth. The police chief was livid when he heard about what they had done in the embassy, and immediately fired Rayan. On his way back home, Rayan received a call from the drug dealer. He was ordered to bring the drug dealer the notebook in less than 2 hours, else his grandmother will be roasted. Having no choice, Rayan could only go to steal it. It was then that the doctor called Rayan and told him that he was wrong, that Rayan was perfectly healthy and can live on for at least 30 more years. "What? I risked my life to catch those drug dealers and now you tell me it was all a mistake?" Still, thanks to this mistake, Rayan has managed to find his own courage. Rayan was doing the wire walking with an iron tube in his hand. Despite walking 328 feet above the ground and facing various perils, he eventually managed to reach the building on the other side. Trouble was, the door of the office was locked. Rayan used his watch to cut a circle in the glass and reached his hand inside, but the door handle was too far away to be reached. On top of that, Rayan's arm was stuck. Fortunately, Rayan managed to solve the issue by cutting off the entire piece of glass, and successfully got the notebook. When Rayan was about to leave, the sound of the broken glasses drew the attention of his colleague. Rayan decided to shut the light and escape, only to find that the window also has guardrails. Fortunately, Stephanie quietly turned off the lights for him, enabling him to escape successfully. At the restaurant of the drug dealer, Rayan asked him the whereabouts of his grandmother, to which the drug dealer merely pointed backwards, just when Rayan was afraid that his grandmother may have already been roasted. A guard brought his grandmother here. Turns out Rayan's worry was unwarranted. His grandmother was still alive. Rayan then handed the notebook to the drug dealer while ingeniously starting to record with his phone. However, the waiter came to retrieve the tableware and unfortunately noticed his phone. This is the site of the police and drug dealer's final confrontation. The drug dealer swiftly shot at Rayan. When the other three rushed in, Stephanie was worried about Rayan. Asked him if he was okay. "I'm fine. My police badge stopped the bullet." Yet when he checked his badge, Rayan found that there was no sign of a bullet hole. "Damn, I was shot." Rayan's there, spouting his last words. "Take care of grandma for me." Stephanie looks at him coolly. "You've just got a scratch," holding his grandmother as hostage. Rayan was ordered by the drug dealer to stand down and surrender. After taking a glance above, Rayan shot the fan above him, causing it to fall onto his grandmother. Sadly, he just couldn't hit the target. The drug dealer tried to escape with a motorcycle, only for Rayan to chase after him with one as well. A literal Fast and Furious was unfolded on the street. In the end, they charged at each other at full speed, but the drug dealer took a sharp turn, rammed himself into the guardrail, and fell off his motorcycle. Finally, he was caught. The police chief personally awarded the four with medals. Rayan and Stephanie also became a lovely couple and live happily ever after. The end. The name of this movie is 30 Jours Max. If you like it, be sure to watch the original movie itself, and be sure to subscribe and leave kudos. See you guys next time. Bye.